Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome back to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
And I'm Pepper. And this is Lorenzo Il Magnifico.
One of the Board Game Geek Top 100
Yes.
games.
Surprisingly.
At least at this point.
Yes, at the time of this filming. But it's in the mid-90s, so
it could fall.
It could drop any day.
But yeah, this is going to be our first impressions after one play of this game. It's one that I had kind of always been interested in playing. I think because it was a top 100 game,
Yep.
and it was typically pretty cheap compared to some of the games on that list. I don't know if it's just one that was printed a lot. I don't know why. I guess in this particular case, this one is kind of cheaper than a lot of the other
Cool
ones.
Mini or Not game, which they either have very expensive games or pretty well priced games. Things like Way of the Panda and Council of Four, and this Lorenzo. And
yeah, that's. It's kind of surprising. This doesn't look like a CMON game.
No, it
does not make me think of one.
And there are no minis in the game, at least in ours. Maybe there's some deluxe version Kickstarter.
No, but there are wooden pieces, which is just as good, in my opinion. But no, so we played one round of this. I guess going into this game, I think my expectations were kind of middle of the road, because I don't know that I hear many people talk about it a ton anyway, and maybe it's just because I hadn't played it myself, and then kind of you don't really notice it sometimes when people are. I mostly see stuff on Instagram, so kind of once you have played it, you kind of know what the things look like, and then all of a sudden you start seeing, oh, there are posts about this. I just maybe never knew what.
Especially when it's like one of these games where maybe it could be confused with other types of games.
Right.
I mean, not like you said, there's a lot of wood pieces, and I think that's kind of familiar with Euro games and different boards, and could possibly not notice it. Just kind of slip on by if you're not familiar.
Right, but yeah, so I think
not this cover though. If you saw this cover,
you would know this cover.
You know it.
But yeah, I think I was middle of the road. Hopeful that it would be really good, especially since it's on the top 100 Board Game Geek, which is pretty impressive, because I think for it to still be there, especially with the recent years, there's been a lot of them that kind of have been able to shoot right up past everything else to kind of some of those top spots. So yeah, for it to still be on there, I think it's. I can't remember. I looked. I think it was like 5-6 years old.
Oh,
so it's one that's stuck there.
I feel like just because it's in the top 100, I've felt like it's had some talk about it. Mm-hmm. But other than just the fact of it being in the top 100, I haven't heard much talk about it. Other than that.
Right. And I don't know, like in a lot of the Dice Tower top 10 lists, I don't know that I ever really hear it mentioned for anything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, me, on the other hand, I not as into these Euro games, or at least ones that may look like this, which it's not the worst. A lot of people complain about the cover. It's not the worst cover. I mean, it's different, at least. But yeah, just kind of what I would expect to be a heavy Euro game. It's not that exciting for me, so you're middle of the road. I was down on the bottom of the road. I was buried under the road,
hiding the dark road. Trying not to play.
Probably pretty low expectations. I had actually watched a video, and it seemed like it was more approachable, than a little simpler than I thought it would be. So that brought it up maybe up a little bit, but still not one that I expected to like too much overly.
Yeah. But yeah, then we got our play of it in. Yeah, it's got worker placement, but in a 2-player game, kind of some of the places are blocked off with some great artwork pieces. Maybe not the greatest. But yeah, so then you're kind of building a tableau of kind of 4 different sets of cards, different colors. You can at most have 6 of each type.
Yep. Some of them are end games, some of them are ongoing effects, and then some are production or trading things.
Which as I was reading the rules, I was like, oh, this sounds like could be pretty interesting, where you're kind of building a bit of an engine, and then when you're triggering one of those 2 types of production spaces, you kind of get all of this cool production possibly.
Yeah.
And you've got way of and your workers are all kind of changing values throughout the game.
Yeah. So everyone has like a black, orange, and white and neutral worker. The neutral worker is always 0 unless you get an effect that changes that. And for those other 3, you roll 3 dice of those matching colors to determine the values for everyone's workers of those colors, which is pretty cool. That it is. Everyone has those values, so it's not like anything's unbalanced, but it is changing from round to round, and maybe one round you have a bunch of 1 and 2 valued workers, and the next one you have 5s and 6s. I found that part pretty interesting.
Yeah, because at first I didn't know if I would find it that interesting, because it seemed kind of a little strange, but I think with how the actions work where you need certain values to take a lot of them, that's what made it really interesting as to, I've either got to spend these kind of purple guys to alter my dice or the values of my people, but not because I don't have my own dice, but kind of alter the value of the associated worker. I found that very interesting, where it's like, could put my, you might have a 5 and then a 3 and a 2 or something. I'd like to use my 5 for this particular action because it requires 5. Or possibly even there's some that cost 7, so even if you had a 6 die, you'd have to still spend at least 1 worker to use it, which I find kind of interesting that that's the case. But then you kind of, if you're spending those bigger ones, you kind of get bonuses, which is also really nice, I think, because that makes those feel a little bit more attainable, I think. But yeah, I liked how that all worked, and how when you would put one out there, you could, but you typically would not be able to get like multiple cards very easily of the same color.
Yeah, because you can in the column you can't have 2 of your same color, but like we said, there's that one neutral that you do have, which can be put in there, but he's going to be a value 0, so it's not like you're going to be able to snag 2 of the top options without spending quite a bit of those adjustment people. But yeah, it really narrows down the board very quickly, because money is tight in the game usually, and
the workers, the things that adjust your dice are tight.
Yes. So if anyone goes to one of those spots, you're gonna have to pay 3 coin to even be able to go in that column. And the other options, like we said in a 2-player game, are very limited, and there's actually one of the kind of feed your people things in the game is you have to get a certain amount of faith points to pay off at the end of every era.
Every 2 rounds.
And so that a bad thing doesn't happen to you. And one of the bad things removed some of the spots on the board for us. So in the last round, I think we both got that one removed. So we had 2 less spots to go to. And
and those are the cheaper spots.
Yeah, those are the cheap ones. And like you said, those production spots can only hold 1 person, which is huge, because we both had a very nice kind of green production. And
so it's kind of whoever went first.
Yeah, whoever was first player was probably going to take that. But then they are leaving the possibly the better cards up for the other player to claim. But yeah, it just felt very limiting to the actions as the game went on.
Yeah, and it looks like in a higher player count, you do open those up, but they are kind of lesser versions of the action. So I think that would be nice to at least have the option to take that. But yeah, obviously you need to spend larger dice to do it as well. So I think overall everything felt like it flowed together pretty well, and I liked how it all worked. But also I don't know. I think I would, after the one play, probably put this one around a 7-ish, 7.25 or something. Because I don't know that it had anything that was like overly exciting. Because you could only do the production so many times. But at the same time, I think if you got to do it too often, then you'd probably it'd be too powerful as well. So I can see why it's very limited. That makes sense. That keeps it tight to actually keep the game kind of in balance and working. So it makes sense for sure. But I think that could take away a little bit from some of the excitement of, I've got this great like you said,
Yeah.
the Great Forest thing's built up a bunch of actions. So if I could just get a 4 or 5 activation on there, I could activate almost all my cards on that
Yeah.
row. And then all of a sudden, the other player takes it,
Yep.
and then you're kind of out
Maybe
of luck.
another player takes first player, so then
Right.
you aren't going to be able to do it next time, possibly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think still overall it's a very solid seeming game, and I do plan on getting a few more plays in. But yeah, I don't know if I would see it increasing or decreasing. Because it is too, I think it does have some elements that kind of once you've played it, you kind of know kind of what things are more important than others and how things will work in the game. So I could see that having that knowledge would also possibly help you as well.
Yep. Yeah. So my number is probably going to be a little lower. It's hard to do it because it's just not my type of game that I get really excited about, and I think a lot of it, for me, for first impression, is just how excited you are about getting this game back to the table. And so I'm like, I don't really want to put like below a 6 or something, because that seems like you're calling it a terrible game. Like you said, I think it works together really nicely, and I think there's some clever things in there. But, I mean, just not something that excites me too much. So I'll just put this at a 6 for first impression. There were some good cards that when you got them, it felt really good when you score 7 points or snake 7 points for at the end of the game, or claim those resources for those higher up spots and produce for your greens. So there can be some really satisfying moves. I do just wish that you had a little more freedom to do more of that in the game.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, because I could see some people really loving this one, because it also, even with all that, like we said, it's pretty approachable for what it is. It's a tight game, but it is approachable. It doesn't have I don't think there's any rules really that are too complicated or convoluted where you're questioning things all the time. Most of it's pretty straightforward once you kind of get into it, which is always good in kind of those tight Euro games. Sometimes they're tight and then you're still questioning things, and that becomes a little bit more of a hassle. But I can see why, it's pretty streamlined and things going together. So I could see why this is definitely, a top game for some people. I don't know that it would ever be a top game for me, but like I said, I could see it maybe going up a little bit, but it'd probably sit around that 7, which I kind of feel is like one of those where it's like if someone asked me to play it, I would be wanting to play it with them. But it's not one that I'm gonna maybe be bringing out more than a couple times a year.
I think there's just a lot of things in the game I think you can find in other games. That's what's so tough about any game nowadays. Now that we have so many.
That's true.
Especially Euros, it seems like it's a little harder to do something unique in those as well, and still have it be work together really nicely, not be overly convoluted or crazy. Right.
Yep. I 100% agree. But those are our first thoughts on Lorenzo Il Magnifico. After one play, let us know below if you think
not so magnifico, apparently.
Apparently not. But let us know below if you've played this game, what your thoughts are, if you really love it. Because I can see where people could really like the game, because it's a nice tableau building thing. I mean, you've got kind of those 4 elements to focus on. But if you want to see future first impressions on games, definitely subscribe and hit the notification so you'll see when those go up. Otherwise, we hope to see you on our next video, and as always, don't forget to
keep on nibbling
on our content.